So topic 12, it's about sulfur and its compound. These are the learning objectives. You should be able to mention the sources of the sulfur, how we can manufacture sulfuric acid by a contact process, then uses of the test for sulfur dioxide and its uses, and describe the manufacture of sulfuric acid. So sulfur, basically, sulfur, how it exists, it can be found as an element and it is existing as underground. So sulfur existing as a sulfur solid and that is underground. And sulfur solid is yellow in color. And it is also found in different rims of the volcanoes, like the side nearby sides of the volcano, we can find this element sulfur. It also occur in a metal ore or metal compound, which is known as lead sulfide or also known as a galena. That's a name given to the ore of lead. And sulfur compound also occur naturally in the fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas. So there are many ways we can have this element sulfur, but normally sulfur mining is done and sulfur existing as a yellow solid underground. What are the uses of the sulfur? Where we can use the sulfur? The sulfur element can be used to manufacture sulfuric acid. So that is one of the use. Vulcanizing the rubber, like to increase the strength of the rubber, we can use sulfur to make different drugs, pesticide, matches, paper, and some is added to a cement to make sulfur concrete, which cannot be cracked by acid in the wall or floors in the factories. So the sources and the uses of the sulfur you have to learn. Then there are oxides of the sulfur. What are the two oxides of a sulfur? One is sulfur dioxide, another one is sulfur trioxide. So when sulfur react with oxygen, it gives sulfur dioxide. And when sulfur dioxide further react with oxygen, it gives sulfur trioxide. But what is the difference between sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide? Sulfur dioxide or SO2 is a stable oxide of a sulfur. But SO3 sulfur trioxide is unstable oxide. It can decompose or it can break down. So when oxide of a sulfur, the sulfur dioxide reacted with oxygen, it will give sulfur trioxide. But this reaction is reversible. Formation of sulfur trioxide is reversible. It means that sulfur trioxide can also break down and it forms sulfur dioxide and oxygen. Whereas the formation of sulfur dioxide is irreversible. Once sulfur dioxide is formed, it does not break down. Then uses of the sulfur dioxide, where we can use sulfur dioxide, there are different uses of sulfur dioxide, like we can also use for manufacture sulfuric acid. It is also used to bleach. Bleach means like removing the color. It is used to bleach the wool, silk, wood pulp for making papers. The white paper is basically due to the sulfur dioxide used as a bleaching agent, remove the color. And it is also used as a sterilizing agent. Sterilizing means it does not allow the bacteria to grow. So in a soft drink or jam or in dry fruits to stop the growth of bacteria and molds. Then the manufacture of sulfuric acid, how we can manufacture sulfuric acid. The manufacture of a sulfuric acid, that is known as a contact process. So if you want to prepare sulfuric acid, the technique, the method is known as the contact process. What happen in a contact process, how we carry out this process? So first thing, what are the steps? First, the sulfur burned in air. So we have sulfur, we burn in air. So sulfur burned in air, as a result it produces sulfur dioxide. That is one thing. Then this sulfur dioxide, it reacted with oxygen, but this reaction is reversible reaction. So we have to maintain certain conditions. The forward reaction is exothermic. So for this reaction, you have to learn the reaction conditions. What are the reaction conditions? This reaction must be carried out around 450 degrees centigrade. Then it should be at high pressure. So it is about 2 to 3 atmospheric pressure is there. And we also use a catalyst to speed up the reaction. So vanadium pentoxide or V2O5 is used as a catalyst. So these are the reaction conditions to have a better yield of sulfur trioxide. Once sulfur trioxide is formed, so sulfur dioxide react with oxygen, give sulfur trioxide. Once sulfur trioxide is formed, there are two ways to get sulfuric acid from sulfur trioxide. Number one, we can directly mix with water. So we have sulfur trioxide. If we add water, so sulfur trioxide plus H2O, as a result, it will produce H2SO4. But there is a problem carrying out this reaction. Sulfur trioxide is a gas, water is a liquid, but when this reaction occurs, it is a violent reaction. As a result, it will produce vapors of the sulfuric acid. So it will be difficult to remove the vapors of the acid from the container. That's why we don't prefer this technique. We follow an alternative route. What is that alternative route? So first, this sulfur trioxide is mixed with a small quantity of sulfuric acid. So we are producing sulfuric acid, but we use a small quantity from any other source. So what will be the advantage of this? This sulfur trioxide mixed with sulfuric acid, H2SO4. As a result, what it will form? It will form H2, S2 and O7. This H2, S2 and O7 is known as oleum. Oleum is basically a liquid, and this oleum is mixed with water, H2S2O7, which is mixed with water or H2O. As a result, it will produce two molecules of sulfuric acid. So what is the advantage of using this method rather than the first one? Because here the sulfuric acid which is produced is the aqueous sulfuric acid, but the first one was a vapor sulfuric acid. Vapors are difficult to remove as compared to that of the aqueous or a liquid. The second thing, we add only one molecule of sulfuric acid. When we add one molecule of sulfuric acid, as a result, when they combine, two molecules of sulfuric acid are produced. So it means it increases the, like we are getting the one which we add, and we are getting the one which is formed as well. We are at the last, we are getting both of them, the one which is added and the one which is formed. So advantage of using the second route as compared to the first one: number one, it produces aqueous sulfuric acid. Number two, the reaction is not a violent reaction as compared to the first one, as the vapors of the sulfuric acid are difficult to remove from the mixture. Is it clear? The manufacture of sulfuric acid by the contact process. Then what are the properties of the sulfuric acid? It forms, when it reacts with metal or metal oxide or hydroxide, it gives sulfate salt. When concentrated, it is used, it is as a dehydrating agent, a thick oily, and it will turn blue litmus red because it's a strong acid, and it has a low pH, high conductivity. It can react with base. So these are some uses. Even in the batteries, the car batteries, we are also using sulfuric acid. So some more uses of sulfuric acid: it can be used to make fertilizers. It is used in paints, pigments, dyes, fibers, plastic, soap, detergent, car batteries. So a lot of uses are there for the sulfuric acid. Then sulfuric acid as a drying agent and dehydrating agent. Drying agent means removing the water molecule, but the chemical composition of the compound does not change. Dehydrating agent means chemically the whole compound will change. So example, we have a container which is filled with sulfuric acid, H2SO4 is there, and we have inlet for the moist air, and we have outlet for the dry air. So one side we have a moist air enter, and on the other side the dry air will leave. So in this case, what we called is sulfuric acid, we called that sulfuric acid as a drying agent. What happened? Because the moisture, it contained different, it contained carbon dioxide, it contained nitrogen. So there is nitrogen, there is carbon dioxide, there is oxygen, other inert gases are also there, and there are water molecules. But when these gases are passed through, the sulfuric acid will attract the water molecule. So water molecule will be stopped within the sulfuric acid. So it will trap the water molecule, and what happened to the remaining molecule? They are able to go out. So at the result, we'll have nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other inert gases, but without any water molecule. So when the sulfuric acid attract the water molecule directly, what we call this sulfuric acid, we call that it is a drying agent. This is a sulfuric acid as a drying agent. But what about dehydrating agent? What is the meaning of dehydrating agent? Example, we have a sugar crystals. So sugar crystal is C6H12O6. So say this is a sugar crystal which is C6H12 and O6. And what we did, we are adding a sulfuric acid. H2SO4 is added to this. So when we add H2SO4 sulfuric acid to this sugar crystal, what will happen? It will break down this sugar molecule into 6 carbon atoms and 6 water molecules. So when 6 carbon atoms are there, carbon is produced. So what is this carbon? This carbon will be a black solid, and water molecules are there. So there will be vapors. So this sulfuric acid, when sulfuric acid chemically change the substance and remove the water out or break down the whole molecule and take out the water, what we call that time sulfuric acid is known as dehydrating agent. So when a water is removed from the mixture, like as you can see, air is a mixture. So removal of the water from the mixture, we call drying agent. But removal of the water from the compound, we call that as dehydrating agent. So here the water is removed from the mixture, and the second part, the water is removed from the compound. So when we remove the water from the mixture, we call it a drying agent. But when we remove water from the compound, we call that as a dehydrating agent. So sulfuric acid is having a tendency to work as a both drying or a dehydrating agent. Is it clear the difference between the drying and the dehydrating agent? So this was a very short topic which is about sulfur and its compounds. So it include like what are the sources of sulfur, oxides of sulfur, uses of sulfur dioxide, manufacture of sulfuric acid, properties and uses of sulfuric acid, and sulfuric acid as a drying and dehydrating agent. Now we'll do some questions related to the topic. So IGCSE exercise, O-level exercise related to sulfur and its compound. So we'll do some MCQs and then structure question. The equation is there. The forward reaction is exothermic. Which effect do the increasing a temperature and using a catalyst have on the rate of the reaction? They're not asking about equilibrium. So rate of a reaction is directly proportional to temperature, and rate of the reaction is directly proportional to the catalyst. Like how much catalyst is used, that will also. So using a catalyst will increase the rate, and increasing a temperature will also increase the rate. Keep in mind, they ask about the rate here. They did not ask the yield. Yield means amount of the product, and that is affected by shifting of the equilibrium. If equilibrium shifted right, the yield will increase, and equilibrium shifted towards the left, the yield will decrease. The contact process is used to manufacture sulfuric acid. Which statement about this process is not correct? A catalyst iron is used. That is wrong. We don't use catalyst iron. We use vanadium pentoxide. So A is not correct. What about B? Oxygen from air is used to react with sulfur dioxide. That's true. Sulfur trioxide dissolve in sulfuric acid to form oleum. That's also true. And the temperature which is used is around 450 degree centigrade. So all the option B, C, and D statements are correct. Only A, because iron is not used as a catalyst for sulfuric acid. It is used to manufacture ammonia by a Haber's process. So manufacture of sulfuric acid, which conditions are used? Temperature should be around 450. Pressure is around 2 to 3 atm. So it is around 1.5. And catalyst is vanadium pentoxide or V2O5. So temperature is 450. Pressure is 2 to 3 atm. Here 1.5, which is closer. And vanadium pentoxide is used as a catalyst. And these are the condition if the same question was there for manufacture of ammonia. If they ask the same question, if we want to manufacture ammonia by Haber's process, so 450, 200 atm, and iron will be the catalyst. But they did not ask for ammonia. This topic is about sulfuric acid, so you have to learn these conditions. Which statement about sulfuric acid is correct? It is made by a Haber process. We don't call that as a Haber process. We call that as a contact process. It is made in the atmosphere by action of the lightning. No, it does not. It's oxides of nitrogen are produced by action of the lightning, not sulfuric acid. It reacts with ammonia to produce fertilizer. That is true. Fertilizers are compound because ammonia react with sulfuric acid H2SO4. So it will form ammonium sulfate. And what is ammonium sulfate? It is a fertilizer because it is providing an essential nutrient nitrogen. Any compound, soluble compound, which can provide NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, we call that as fertilizer. So when sulfuric acid mixed with ammonia, it gives fertilizer. So that is true. It reacts with copper metal to give hydrogen. Sulfuric acid, because copper, if you check the reactivity, all of the metal does not react with acid. Copper is the least reactive metal, so it does not react with acid, so it does not give off. Metal react with acid, give off hydrogen. That is true. But in case of copper, it is not correct. Why it is not correct? Because the copper does not react with acids, as it is a less reactive metal. Sulfuric acid is manufactured by a contact process. What are the most important reaction take place in the presence of catalyst? That is when sulfur dioxide mixed with oxygen to give sulfur trioxide. That is the most important, because if this reaction is having a higher yield, we'll get more sulfuric acid. So vanadium pentoxide B2O5 is the catalyst, and the temperature is around 450 degrees centigrade or 2 to 3 atm. So the important reaction started with sulfur and oxygen, but the most important reactant is sulfur dioxide and oxygen. So when sulfur dioxide and oxygen mix with each other in the presence of vanadium pentoxide as a catalyst, it will give sulfur trioxide, and amount of sulfur trioxide decide how much sulfuric acid we will get. Then sulfuric acid is manufactured by a series of chemical reaction, one which is catalyzed by vanadium pentoxide. So which reaction is catalyzed or speed up by vanadium pentoxide? When sulfur dioxide reacted with oxygen gives sulfur trioxide, that is catalyzed by vanadium pentoxide or V2O5. The following scheme shows 4 stages in the conversion of sulfuric acid, in which stage the catalyst is used. So first, sulfur burned in air to produce sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide react with more oxygen to give sulfur trioxide. So here we use a catalyst. When sulfur dioxide converted into sulfur trioxide, the reaction is reversible. We use a catalyst to speed up the reaction. And what catalyst is used? The catalyst used here is vanadium pentoxide. Which row shows the condition for manufacture of sulfuric acid by a contact process? So temperature is around 450, the pressure is 2 atm, and catalyst is vanadium pentoxide or V2O5. So the temperature around 450, so closer value is 400, 2 to 3 atm, and vanadium pentoxide V2O5 as a catalyst to speed up this reaction. Which statement about sulfur or its compound is correct? Sulfur occurred naturally as an element. That is true, because we can, as I mentioned in the beginning of the chapter, that we can have sulfur, underground sulfur as a yellow solid. Sulfur dioxide is used to kill bacteria. That is wrong. We don't use sulfur trioxide. We use chlorine to kill bacteria for purification of water. Sulfur trioxide is a weak acid. That is also wrong. Dilute sulfuric acid is a dehydrating agent. Not dilute, it is concentrated sulfuric acid is used as a dehydrating agent. Concentrated means it contains less water. Dilute means it already contains water, so it cannot be a dehydrating agent. So concentrated sulfuric acid can be used as a dehydrating but not the dilute. So statement B, C and D are incorrect. Then the structure questions are there. Straightforward structure question. You don't find, like, we have to memorize. Sulfuric acid is produced in a contact process. So starting material, what are the starting material here? So starting material is sulfur plus oxygen gives sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide mixed with oxygen trioxide, then mixed with sulfuric acid give oleum, and oleum is mixed with water to give sulfuric acid. So name a source of a sulfur. So we can mention, like, fossil fuels are there. We can mention coal, oil, gas, fossil fuel, or metal ores such as lead oxide or lead sulfide or galena. Then describe step 2. So this is a step 2 when sulfur dioxide convert into sulfur trioxide. Give reaction condition. So it's of, see the weightage of the mark, it's of 5 marks, and reference to the reaction rate and yield is not required. Like, you don't have to mention how the temperature affect the rate or the yield. You just need a reaction condition and chemical equation. So when you write temperature should be 450, you will get 1 mark. When you write 2 to 3 atm is a pressure, you will get the second mark. When you mention vanadium pentoxide is a catalyst, you will get the third mark. Then sulfur dioxide mixed with oxygen to give sulfur trioxide, the reaction is reversible, the forward reaction, and the forward reaction is exothermic and it's a reversible reaction. So when you use this arrow for a reversible reaction, you will get the fourth mark, and the complete balance equation, you will get the fifth mark. So just mention temperature around 450, pressure is 2 to 3 atm. You can mention 1 to 5 atm as well. Then the catalyst vanadium pentoxide is used as a catalyst, and the equilibrium, showing the arrow, reversible reaction, so arrow should be there, that will give you 1, and formation of a sulfur trioxide, that will give you the last mark. What is atm? Atm means atmospheric pressure. 1 atmospheric pressure, 1 atm means 100,000 pascal. That you studied in physics, that when we have 1 atmospheric pressure, we call that as 100,000 pascal. atm is a unit of pressure. So when we say 2 atm, what is the meaning of 2 atm? It means 200,000 pascal. So that is the pressure which is created for manufacture of sulfur trioxide from sulfur dioxide. Then involving addition of sulfur trioxide to sulfuric acid. So we have to complete this equation. Oleum, what is the formula for oleum? It is H2, S2 and O7. Then dilute sulfuric acid is a typical acid. Student add copper carbonate. Like, we have, student is having a copper carbonate and he adds sulfuric acid. So if we have copper carbonate, a metal carbonate is there, and an acid is added, so what will be the result? The result will be salt, water, and carbon dioxide. So when metal carbonate react with acid, the result is a salt, which is copper sulfate, plus water plus carbon dioxide. So give three observations. What we will see: number one, whenever a gas is given off, so what you will see bubbles, fizz, or effervescence. That is one thing. Then this copper carbonate is a solid. This copper carbonate will dissolve. So solid disappear or solid dissolve, we can mention. That is second thing. And this copper sulfate, because copper is a transition element, whenever transition element is formed, so a colored solution will be there, or a colored compound is formed, so we can mention a colored solution or a blue solution, because copper compounds generally blue, so it will form a blue solution. Give the name of all the products already I mentioned here. When sulfuric acid react with copper carbonate, it gives copper sulfate, water, and carbon dioxide. Then concentrated sulfuric acid has different properties than dilute. When concentrated sulfuric acid is added to glucose C6H12O6, a steam is given off in a black solid form. So basically, a concentrated sulfuric acid is a dry dehydrating agent. It can remove the water from the compound. So the black solid, what is the black solid? The black solid is the carbon. And what type of reaction occur? So this is dehydration. Why we call dehydration? When water molecule is removed, we call that compound reaction as dehydration. So as you can see, the glucose molecule break down into carbon and water. That's why we call this reaction as a dehydration. Then sulfuric acid can be manufactured from sulfur, air, and water. First, sulfur convert into sulfur dioxide, then sulfur dioxide to trioxide, then oleum, and then oleum is converted into sulfuric acid. Describe how sulfur is converted into sulfur dioxide. So how sulfur is converted into sulfur dioxide? By reacting with oxygen or air. You can mention air or you can directly mention oxygen. Then write a chemical equation for conversion of sulfur to sulfur dioxide. So sulfur mixed with oxygen gives sulfur dioxide. And this reaction is not a reversible reaction. It is irreversible. Sulfur trioxide formation is a reversible reaction. Then sulfur trioxide converted into the following: sulfur dioxide mixed with oxygen gives sulfur trioxide. The temperature is around 450. The pressure is 1 to 2 atmospheres and catalyst is used. What is the meaning of this arrow? So it means the reaction is reversible. Means the reactant can form a product can form. What is the catalyst used? So we use vanadium pentoxide as a catalyst. Why is the catalyst used for? What is the purpose of the catalyst? To increase the rate of the reaction. If the temperature is higher than 450 is used, what would happen to amount of sulfur trioxide? So you can see the reaction, the energy change is negative, so this reaction is exothermic. Exothermic reactants have high energy and the product is having low energy. So energy of the reactant will be higher and energy of the product is low. So we have sulfur dioxide mixed with oxygen to give sulfur trioxide. So what happens if we increase the temperature? Then equilibrium or the balance will shift towards the left hand side. So equilibrium will shift toward the left. If equilibrium will shift toward the left, what will happen to amount of sulfur trioxide or yield of sulfur trioxide? That will decrease. So we'll get less sulfur trioxide. So the answer here you will mention the forward reaction is exothermic. So increase in temperature will favor the backward reaction. So more sulfur dioxide and oxygen will be produced. So amount of sulfur trioxide will decrease. Suggest a reason why temperature lower than 450 is not used. Like why we did not use very low temperature? Because if we use very low temperature, the rate of the reaction will be slower. Like reaction will occur but very slow. Then if the pressure of 1 to 2 higher than 1 to 2 atmosphere is used, what will happen to amount of sulfur trioxide? It will increase. Why it will increase? Because the equilibrium or the balance shifted towards the right hand side. Why the equilibrium or the balance shifted towards the right hand side? As you have sulfur dioxide, two molecules of sulfur dioxide mixed with oxygen to give sulfur trioxide. So whenever we increase the pressure, equilibrium shift towards side where number of particles are less. That's why it will shift towards the right hand side. What is added to sulfur trioxide to convert into oleum? So what we add sulfuric acid. Write a chemical equation for sulfur trioxide to oleum. So sulfur dioxide plus sulfuric acid will give H2, S2 and O7. What is added to oleum to convert into sulfuric acid? So we add water, then write the equation. So H2, S2, O7 plus water H2O. As a result, it will produce two molecules of sulfuric acid. Give one use of sulfuric acid. You can mention car batteries for making soap, detergent, nylon, for making soap, detergent, fibers, or dehydrating agent or a drying agent. So anything we can mention here. So these are some questions related to manufacture of sulfuric acid as well as the topic sulfur. Is it clear, this topic? The exercise related to sulfur?